What's wrong?
All right, welcome to Haven of Horror, episode 11. We had some slight technical issues as well as just YouTube's a fuck. So normally I should just be able to hit go live and then it goes live, right? But I'm using Microsoft Edge as a secondary browser for this channel. You have to hit go live on YouTube as well as on OBS. Yeah, I don't know why. I've never had to do that before. Anyway, this is episode 11 of Haven of Horror. We finally got the Canadian back. I mean, the Day Ghost. We are covering. We'll get into what we're covering here in just a moment.
Yep.
But I did want to ask Austin, since you missed the last two, did you have anything that you wanted to say about any of the Carpenter movies that you missed?
Oh no, it's like 2 weeks ago at this point. Did you read off my scores last time?
I read off your scores to In the Mouth of Madness and Village of the Damned, but I realized after we ended, I forgot to give your scores for Vampires and Ghost of Mars. So I am just slightly curious, and we're playing a little bit of catch up here, so sorry guys. What did you think of Vampires and Ghost of Mars?
Vampires was alright. It was better than I expected it to be. And Ghost of Mars was not great.
No, it's not. But I had fun with it.
Pretty succinct way of putting it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Austin.
Yeah, I can't remember what scores I gave them. Oh my god. Somebody say something.
Hello.
Something.
Is it better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. While you guys were talking, I put a new headset in my cart so I can order it.
So if you guys want to help us keep Austin around so he can quit his job, feel free to subscribe. I'm just kidding, of course.
Wait for us to put up a Patreon, then we'll be open to donations.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so anyway, we are covering the original Godzilla and the original King Kong tonight because, of course, the new Godzilla vs. Kong movie comes out today. At least, I think, is that a worldwide release or is it only in select countries?
I think it's worldwide.
Okay. I have seen it already, so I'm not going to say anything, obviously, because at least Austin is very excited. Maybe we'll do like a mini review of it or something, even though it's not really a horror movie. At the very least, I'm just curious to see what Austin thinks of it when he sees it. Milton and I are going to talk very briefly at the end about the original King Kong versus Godzilla, and I know you've seen it, right, Austin?
Like several years ago, but I've seen the fight on YouTube like a billion times, so I can at least talk about that.
Which is really the reason you go to that movie, right? Like,
yeah, which is the same reason why you're going to watch the new one too.
So, but first, of course, we start with news. I'm all discombobulated now because of that tech issue. Like, my brain's just like left the building. Austin, do you have any news?
Not that I can think of.
Of course. Every week, it's just like, nope.
Oh, there's not a lot of news like weekly. I will look up something while you guys are talking.
While you're doing that, I meant to ask you, did you look at that Resident Evil article I posted in the Discord?
How long ago did you post it?
I think I talked about it last week, so it would have been last week.
Probably, but I probably forgot.
Just to give you the rundown, the movie is titled Welcome to Raccoon City. Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
And they're looking at John Carpenter as an inspiration.
Oh, okay.
What got me excited is they cited Assault on Precinct 13 as one of the inspirations. And if they're adapting RE2, that seems almost too good to be true.
It probably is. The movie will probably suck.
Probably. I guess my big news is just that movie was delayed by, I think, a couple weeks. No, it was longer than that. It was delayed like from the end of September to the beginning of November, I believe. Milton, did you have anything that you wanted to discuss that is current?
Well, in about 40 minutes, my tune is going to change because tomorrow is going to be April 1st. And also, like, a lot of the articles are up about, celebrating the legacy of, the release of Godzilla and King Kong, and, recognition of the fact that there's a movie called Godzilla versus King Kong that's going to be.
That was kind of the problem I had with finding a news article. Is it's all just like, here's like a history of kaiju movies, and I'm like, I'm not going through all of that to find.
But to go into it a little bit, we also had some stuff that gave some inspiration for like the big monster movie genre. We have The Golem from 1915. Nosferatu was also an inspiration with vampire films in like 1922. We have Lost World with dinosaurs. Stuff like that. We give a lot of credit, of course, to King Kong and Godzilla, but there were some starting films that helped, pave the way for that sort of stuff. But nothing that released as much critical acclaim as King Kong did in 1933. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
But we'll get more into that later. So
I was going to say that's interesting, but that's not really news. That's just stating a fact about the movie.
I guess
if the news is not about stating facts, then
have you seen the news?
I guess with news, Adam Wingard, the director of the new movie, said that we're not going to get any more of these movies unless it does well, and it seems to be doing well. So that's at least good.
Yeah, I mean, just to talk briefly about the whole MonsterVerse, because obviously this is a review of the original two classic films. But I will never understand the hate some of these movies are getting. Like 2014 is, I think, the worst of them, and even then, it's not like a terrible movie. It's just got problems.
It might be because of the fact that it doesn't appeal as much to the monster movie crowd because you don't get as much Godzilla as you probably would like.
Yeah. It also doesn't surprise me that it gets hate because monster movies are very niche in the first place. So it makes sense to me that like a lot of people
the
look
audience
at
though
it
has grown since it wasn't more of a niche audience back in the day though.
For sure, but I think like some of that still remains. There's still a lot of people that kind of look at it and they're like, this is dumb.
See, Milton, I would have agreed with your point about like not enough Godzilla with 2014, but I don't think that's still a problem after King of the Monsters and Kong.
Noah
it's still a problem for that movie.
Oh, sorry. Noah says going to watch Godzilla vs. Kong sometime soon. I'm excited. I haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to watch it too, actually.
Okay, so Austin, you mentioned there's still a problem with King of the Monsters. You think that's still a problem? Not enough Godzilla?
No, for 2014, like just because you get more in a sequel doesn't mean it's still not an issue in that first film.
Yeah, it's still an issue with that first film, but like even King of the Monsters was getting hate from most.
I don't know if they got
people.
hate for that. It was more so because like the human stuff is really bad.
Yeah,
I've heard that it's been improved with this new movie coming, so who knows? But I mean, we've never exactly in really any of these movies. Well, I'd say except for the films we're going to talk about with the human characters having dimension, which I would say it's a fair critique, especially if they get a lot of screen time. So that is fair. Okay. But primarily we come in there for the action.
So the last thing I'm going to...
It's one of those things where, with the Godzilla movies, where I kind of grave that on a curve, where, like, obviously I want good human stuff, but so often we don't get it, so it doesn't kill the movie for me. But
yeah. So the last thing I'm going to say on the MonsterVerse stuff, because obviously this is not a review of those films, I think one of the things that helps Godzilla, the new one, is I think it's one of the shortest ones in this universe. I think the biggest issue with like King of the Monsters is it's almost 2.5 hours long.
And for the longest time, Google said that Godzilla vs. Kong was going to be 3 hours, and then like a week before it was released, it dropped down to 1:36, and I was like, "Thank God!"
Release the winger cut.
The winger cut.
I think we're just chomping at the bit to just talk about these movies. We might as well just get into it.
Should we go release order?
Yes. So, but I do want to put a disclaimer real quick because I watched Godzilla last night after Milton and I did a Last of Us stream, and I was super tired, so I may not have absorbed as much detail about that movie as I wanted to. So I'm gonna let you guys do a lot of the talking for Godzilla.
So
Yeah,
ashamed.
sue me.
Yeah.
No, here's the thing. I mean, we had fun time on that stream, but I was wondering, is John really going to watch an entire hour and a half movie after our stream ends at 1 a.m.?
Yeah, it was about 1 a.m. when we ended the stream. The other thing I would say is we do have a new Discord up for everyone to join. There is a link in our channel description. Feel free to join. We're all in there. We all chat.
Yes,
except
please.
Austin, he just ignores us. But
well, he's not called the Dagos for no reason. So
Exactly.
no,
Exactly.
But yeah, it's
he's
pretty,
a ghost in the
pretty
shell.
chill. It's a pretty chill server. So we're gonna jump straight into King Kong 1933. Obviously, and you know, it was interesting to me because I forgot that King Kong came out before Godzilla. I always just assumed that Godzilla was like the starting point of any of these giant monster movies. But if I'm right, it's King Kong.
It is King Kong because King Kong was released
By
in
like 21 years.
yeah. King Kong was released in 1933, and Gojira was released in 1954.
All right, so Milton, tell us about King Kong from 1933.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
No, I've made a horrible mistake.
No, I'm glad that means I get Godzilla for a description.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you one of the greatest things your eyes have ever beheld. He was a king in this world, we knew, but he comes to you now a captive in film. Ladies and gentlemen, the eighth wonder of the world, King Kong, released in 1933, captured by Carl Denham and the crew members who came to Skull Island, an island surrounded in essentially myth, which isn't really, it's not really talked of like the myth in of itself. The movie just wants to bring us along to just introduce King Kong and the islanders as quickly as possible. You get probably one of the most important films in cinema of all time, and one of the most impactful, one of the most important. John, you are muted.
Did you say the most important?
I would say one of the most important. Yeah.
Okay.
One of, definitely.
No, I agree. It's just I thought he said most boring, and I was like, wait a minute, what?
No. So, of course, one of the disclaimers I'll bring up, it's a film from 1933. There are some weaknesses here with us coming in as a postmodern audience, but it is still a film that is still watchable. And it has it's not just a film just from a scale thing of bringing in a big monster. You also have early claymation that is introduced in black and white film. You have pretty good voice acting as well in a movie that's being released in 1933. It's probably one of the most important films that's been made pre-World War II, post-World War I, which definitely informs a bit on some of the sensibilities of this movie. But yeah, as some of us probably know, but if you don't, we're going to spoil this movie anyway. King Kong is brought to New York as a spectacle, and there breaks out and comes to a climax where he kidnaps our heroine, our damsel in distress, brings her to the top of the tower where he fights biplanes. And then eventually, it was beauty that killed the beast. So, quick summary. Quickish.
I don't know if that fits in the term quick, but it was a good summary. So
you just missed one thing, which is there are a lot of shots of King Kong like.
I know it was. When we put this up on Spotify, nobody's gonna know what he's doing.
So yes, bulging eyes and with claymation characters.
Those made me laugh every time. I can't tell if that's supposed to be funny or if it's just the technology of the time that makes it funny.
I think it's a technology of the time, but there's probably also a mix of some dark humor with that as well, because
Yes.
it is a horror movie. It very much is.
I agree.
Yeah.
So the thing that I was most surprised by going with this movie, and I'm just gonna say up front, I really liked this movie. I had only seen this one other time, and I was like 14 or 13 or 14. And at that age, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, um, so I went into this and I made sure to keep my expectations low because, you know, I know it's an important movie, but I feel the best way to tackle any movie that is historically important is to not think about that when you're watching the movie, if possible. So I very much tried to separate myself from that. And I like to think that I have a decent, historical perspective, but even that has limits for me. So I was like, well, I'm going to go into thinking the effects are bad. But that's another thing I tried to separate, like, just take the movie on its own terms. I really love the effects in this movie. We've talked about, I don't know if we've talked about on the show, but Austin and I have talked about during movies like claymation and the stuff like that has its own charm. And that's very
stop motion. Yeah, I've
stop
always
motion.
said that stop motion never looks real, but there's a certain charm that it has where you look at it and it's like, oh, that's just cool.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
I had
cool
that,
to look at.
and I had that with this entire movie is like, yes, none of it looks real, but it looks cool, and I don't care that it doesn't look real.
The thing is, especially with this movie, and for those who are very familiar with the claymation, niche in film, will notice certain qualities between, like, some people use it like well and some people who don't. This is one of the films that does it well, and you can see it with the fact of, although it is stop motion clearly and it is claymation, the creatures present, both King Kong as well as the dinosaurs, there's a lot of gesticulation with these models where you can see like emotion and movement here that most people would find to be unnecessary, but it brings life to these things on screen, especially King Kong towards the end of the film when he's on the tower. Because it could be cheap, it could be very direct and minimalistic, but the fact that there are certain portions where there is more detail being put in makes these characters seem a bit more real.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I don't know how much you guys know about like the effects in this. But there's so many different ways that they, merged the actual actors with the stop motion characters. So you'll get like like rear projection, of course, but then you get stuff like they'll take King Kong and they'll be doing the stop motion for him, and they will put pictures of the actors frame by frame with the like with King Kong as like a little picture just underneath them.
Yeah,
So they almost it's crazy the amount of work that they put into this movie.
It's an insane amount of work. And even now, that would still be in quite a bit of work, even now.
And I don't know if you guys know, but there was a whole sequence that was lost, and Peter Jackson recreated it like with these methods with stop motion when he made the 05 movie.
Interesting. What sequence, out of curiosity?
I think it's, so if you know that movie, I think it's the part where they fall into like the crater or whatever, and there's the bugs. I think it's that.
That part is
but
horrifying.
It's been so long. Yeah.
Because that's the scene where I think it's Andy Serkis gets like eaten by those bugs.
I don't know. I love that sequence.
Yeah. The other thing that I really appreciate about this movie is the director is a master at keeping everything in scale. So because of the way it's shot, I believe that these creatures are way bigger than the humans are. And so it makes the threat more believable.
And that's very hard to pull off.
Especially with like, I would assume with the technology they had at the time. Because this is obviously a very early film. The other thing
they're basically creating techniques in order to mix them together.
Yeah. And I'm assuming, well, I'll get into that when we cover Godzilla. The other thing I was surprising, because you had mentioned this before, but how much that Peter Jackson version humanizes Kong, because he's just a beast in this one. And I kind of appreciated that, just because I didn't want to see like the same movie twice, because I'm very familiar with the Peter Jackson remake. I watched that one as a teenager a lot.
He definitely humanizes Kong a bit more. I think it's necessary considering where it's coming from. He doesn't want to just make the exact same film again, but I appreciate what he does. Peter Jackson was very reverent when he did his 2005.
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah, with the Peter Jackson one, it's very much he takes like every little moment and makes it this huge, like epic thing, just out of pure love for this original movie.
Well, and I mean, I haven't seen the '70s version, but I would be confident in saying that the 05 one is the best remake that we've had of that movie.
Yes.
Well, I've never seen that one, but I've seen its sequel, which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So
King Kong 1976 is not a good movie.
Neither is its sequel, King Kong Lives. It's awful.
It looks terrible.
I want to see the one with Robo Kong, because that sounds hilarious.
Oh, gosh.
And it's funny too because they go to a guy in a suit in the '70s one, which Godzilla only did because they couldn't afford to do the stop motion like they could with King Kong.
Yeah, mind if I read off all the King Kong sequels here just real quick?
Yeah, before you do that, I'm just gonna say it's really funny to me that it's always they come in twos.
Yeah, at least for the most part. But yeah, so we have King Kong released in 1933, March 2nd, 1933. Son of Kong released on December 22nd, 1933, in the same year.
Yeah, and it's a complete like cash grab.
It is a complete cash grab, but it still manages to deliver a bit on some things. So it's still a decent enough movie, but it is
for what it is that came out like just months after. Yeah.
Yeah. We then have, after that, like no movies for almost 30 years. And then Toho comes in and it's like, hey, we want your ape. We'll pin him against our lizard in King Kong versus Godzilla in 1962. And then again with like King Kong Escapes. Toho was responsible for both those films in 62 and 67, respectively. Then we get the 1976 version of King Kong with Paramount Pictures.
And the big thing I know about that is they changed the ending, so he climbs the twin towers, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's flamethrowers and helicopters, and it's a terrible. I can't even process it properly because it was so bad when I saw it. It was a terrible looking computer effect where King Kong just slowly dives off the building, but like in the middle of the shot and not from the top of the tower. So it was one of those goofy looking things. After that, we have King Kong Lives in 1986. The commonality is with this one is that it was both by John Gillerman, but the distributors were different, and almost a lot of different stuff was different. We have an animated movie called The Mighty Kong, released in '98 by Warner Brothers. We then have Kong, King of Atlantis.
I wonder if the Mighty thing comes from Mighty Joe Young, because that's kind of the spiritual successor to King Kong.
Kind of. Some people would consider it a ripoff. For me, I like Mighty Joe Young, and I like its remake. So
I like the remake. I grew up watching that movie.
Yeah, same here. We have Kong, King of Atlantis in 2005 by BKN International.
What?
Yeah, yep. Released in November 22nd, 2005, director Patrick Archibald under BKN International released Kong, King of Atlantis. I'm fairly sure it's an animated film. I'm gonna look that up real quick.
Oh, I hope it's not. I want to see live action Kong in an underwater city.
I'm sure a remake of that was Peter Jackson's sequel, but it fell through.
Yeah, yep. It was an animated film. It was an animated film. Yep.
And that came out the same year as Jackson's movie.
Yeah. King Kong, directed by Peter Jackson, with Universal coming at it, was released in December 14th, 2005. So it was 22 days later.
Okay, the Atlantis one has to be like the Asylum Kong film.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was any animated Kong films. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then another one got released in November 14th, 2006, called Kong Return to the Jungle, which was another animated film by BKN International, under a different director, Stuart Evans. And then we take a break for about 10 years, and then Kong Skull Island comes into play. And then we're up to the present from there. So that's all the Kong films.
Which, let me just say, if you like Kong, watch Skull Island. It's fantastic. It's not the original movie at all, but watch it. It's great.
Yep. You should only watch some of these films, I think. If you really want to, watch whatever you want, but
watch like 3 of them.
Watch the original,
the Jackson one, and Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'd say watch the original one, watch Peter Jackson's one, then Skull Island, and then
So exactly what we said.
I had a brain lapse. Sorry, I had to process seeing King Kong in like leather suits with humans underneath them, and it was weird.
Never ever watch King Kong Lives.
Okay, so
King Kong dies at the end and gives birth to a baby Kong or something.
Well, it's like they're sad that they killed Kong, so they get a lady Kong and they give him a heart transplant, and then he's Kong, so he like starts rampaging, so they just kill him again. What was the point of that?
Okay, so obviously, this is a very simple film, a very effects-driven film, I would say. But I like most of the characters. I had to laugh, and I know it's a product of its time, but I also had to laugh at just how much of a dick the captain of the ship is to Anne at the beginning.
Or Anglehorn? Anchor?
Is it Englehart or is it... I'm terrible with names. But Austin, you know what I'm talking about, right? Because like she goes out of her way to try to prove herself to this guy on the ship. And also just a nitpick question I had. It does no effect on the film. I was just curious. Does this director always just cast like the first person he meets on the street?
No, these are what major actors looked like in 1933. It was the Great Depression.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about he recruits the character off this.
Oh, like in the movie.
In the movie.
John, you're confusing, Captain Englehorn with Jack Driscoll.
Oh.
Am I? Okay.
You're confusing those two characters in this case.
Yeah, it's the director, not the captain of the ship.
Well, no.
No, Jack Driscoll's not the director.
No, because...
Oh, okay. Sorry. Now I'm confused.
Now you confused two people, too.
You confused me, and now we're all confused.
Okay, but anyway... my point was not about the actual like quality of the actors in the film. Everyone in this film I think is really good.
Yeah, but in universe.
In the film, he just recruits the first woman he meets off the street to be in this movie.
That's great. Women don't need to be good actresses. They just need to look good and not speak.
It wasn't literally the first person that he saw. He just got lucky, but he knew where he was going. He wanted to recruit someone because that's who Carl Denham is. Look through someone who he could put leverage over to a certain degree and realize, there's nothing else going on for your life. Come with me. I'll make you a movie star, kid. So
I don't know. I just feel like if I'm a director, I'm not gonna find some like starving girl on the streets and like be like, "You want to be the star in my movie?"
Well, clearly that's why you don't work in Hollywood, sir.
Apparently,
sir. Apparently, you don't know the strategy. The 4D chess at play.
The only part you're missing is the hotel room.
Hey, Patricia, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by.
Hey, Patricia, how are you?
The other question I had is, what exactly is the movie he's supposed to be making?
Uh, here's the thing. I've based on what the movie says about Carl Denham, he's very spontaneous, and he kind of like takes a thing of like wanting to mix sensationalism with documentary filmmaking. Is kind of the idea. Because he's been with this crew for a while, they've been with other productions with him. So he has developed a relationship already with a lot of the people on this ship. So I have a feeling that here's this new island that's never been touched by white man. Well, let's take a lot of photos here. Oh, but let's put in the sensationalism here because apparently the production company wants me to put in an attractive female lead in here. Let's have her just react to things. Just react to things on the island.
But
do some pinup shots with her or something.
Okay, but that just goes back to my point of what's this movie that he's making supposed to be? He's got one cast member and a camera.
No, you're thinking of movies how we think of them. You have to realize that this is back then, where there wasn't a lot of that. There was a bit more of let's take advantage of a bit more of a kind of experimental form of filmmaking. We're going to documentaries were also a bit more of a thing back then, where we considered these weren't movies; these were motion pictures. Like they literally thought of them as pictures in motion. That's how new the technology was to them. So they just wanted the spectacle of.
I'll concede on that one because I will admit to being very uninformed when it comes to the making of movies at the time.
But I don't think Carl Denham knows.
Yeah, well, he's basically making Roar, the film where the guy just had like 40 lines and was like, "I'm gonna make a movie."
I cannot like wrap my brain. And again, just to be clear, this in no way affected my enjoyment of the movie. It was just something that I wondered.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wrap my head around what this movie he's making is supposed to look like. With one cast member and a camera on an island.
Hey,
you ever heard of Castaway?
That had more than one cast member, though.
The volleyball, right?
Wait, so if he had a volleyball, you'd be like, "Oh, I get it now."
Exactly. No.
Well, no. I mean,
I've never actually seen Castaway.
He also has the other sailors on the ship as well. Jack Driscoll is also movie star material to a certain degree, whether or not that's intended or not. I don't think Carl Denham is the kind of character who cares too much. He's kind of just, let's just explore. Go. Because
I don't know.
Yeah. It's because
old
people
movies
know
are stupid.
his work, and they know that he's not a guy who's too interested in planning things ahead. He takes things as they are in the moment and tries, okay, what's the opportunities in the present? Let's take advantage of it.
Well, I get that, and like I said again, I will concede to I don't know a lot about filmmaking from the 30s, but I would assume at least some of the like the basics are still there. But again, it doesn't matter. But that is one thing I do appreciate about the remake, Peter Jackson's version. They
probably were.
Yeah, it's fine. It was like I said, it was just a minor question that I was thinking during the view. Faye, is it Faye Way?
It's Faye Ray. It's like it's Wray. So I'm fairly.
I was talking to Austin the other
name.
I was talking to Austin the other day, and I got her mixed up with like a completely different actress, and I still don't understand how I did that. Especially because the other actress, I hadn't seen her in anything. I forget who it was now. It was Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway, yeah.
I somehow got those two completely mixed up. I looked Faye.
No, it's Ray J that's in this movie.
Oh, I looked up Faye Way. Faye. God damn it!
Oh my god!
I can't say her name. Apparently.
Okay, so her filmography.
I looked up her filmography, and apparently she's been in quite a few horror movies.
Yeah.
Which might be interesting to check out at some point.
Well, she's got the perfect scream to be in horror.
She really does. Well, and it's funny you mentioned that because Wikipedia also mentioned, of course, that she's one of like the earliest known scream queens.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is not her first film. She's had quite a few beforehand. Before getting into Kong.
Well, and apparently she was offered a like cameo in Kong's in Peter Jackson's remake, and she turned it down. Because she just said, "Well, we already did like the perfect version of that movie." And
it's just Jackson.
I'm gonna probably catch shit for this, but I think the Peter Jackson version I prefer. I think I prefer that version. What do you guys think?
I would say if you're going to watch the Peter Jackson version, you should watch the original as well.
Yeah, I was saying to somebody the other day that I don't know if you can truly appreciate the Peter Jackson film without seeing the original, because that movie is just, it's basically just about his love for the original film.
And that is the best thing that a remake can be, where you say you should watch the original to appreciate the remake.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. You should still watch.
Yeah, you either do your own thing or you do that. I agree. Yeah.
You should still watch the first one first, but I'm just saying, like, since now I have seen both, if I'm picking, like, I'm in the mood to watch King Kong and I had to pick one, I would pick the 05 one before I go back to the 33 one. But they're both fantastic in their own ways.
See, just like, oh hey, I'm gonna slap one on. It'll have to be the original because it's like an hour and a half shorter.
That's true.
They're both good movies. I think the Peter Jackson one, while really good, is maybe a little like knowingly self-indulgent about its length.
It's like a fan of the movie decides I want to release my version of this movie.
Well, and I think you could cut out some of that stuff like before they get to the island, because I think his version takes too long to get to the island.
See, that's some of my favorite stuff that he adds. I love that he very much makes it a part of the Great Depression. I think that's really great.
Yeah. And I'm personally in favor of more development because, as you said, John, you have an issue with like perhaps less development with Carl Denham finding his female lead. So conceptually, at the very least, you should be a bit more in favor.
Well, when I say
think some of the stuff I'd cut is more like later on, to be honest.
Oh. See, when I say getting to the island, I mostly mean some of the stuff when they're already on the ship. Now, it's been a while, so maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's a big chunk of the movie. It's just them on the ship.
It is, but I think we were talking about 2014 Godzilla earlier. I think that's kind of the perfect way of building up to the monster action, because you're actually building to something, and then once we get him, he's there the whole time.
Wait,
as opposed to the Godzilla thing where we're building and it's like, oh, is he there? No.
Wait, Austin, you
building?
Mean you don't like...
Oh, is he there? No. Building.
Wait, so Austin,
okay, there's like 6 minutes left of the movie. Here's some action.
So Austin, you mean you don't like to watch a movie where you see like a footstep and then it cuts to after the fight?
No.
You sounded so broken there, just like no.
Oh boy. But back to the movie.
Yeah, back to the movie. It's been a minute since we've gotten to talk to Austin like this, so
yeah,
we missed talking to you, buddy.
You said, so John, sorry.
Go ahead.
You say this is a simple movie. I would say in some ways yes, but I do see some more complexity to it than maybe some others might see. In some of the characterization and in some of the concepts, Carl Denham is a very layered character in this movie, which I was actually surprised to see for like the second time, because I did not pick up on as much of Carl Denham when I saw it when I was much younger, when my dad introduced the movie to me. And then seeing his character here is like, wow, this is a very detailed character. Especially in comparison to the rest of the cast too, which they have some dimension as well, but not a whole lot. Jack Driscoll is kind of the guy who is like, I'm the tough guy. I don't deal with them women's and all that.
And he basically becomes a parody in the Peter Jackson one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Where he's the character in the movie that they're making.
Yeah. Anne is like the closest like contender to Carl Denham's dimension to a certain degree. The problem is that she pretty much just becomes the damsel in distress post-Kong, and then she doesn't get to do anything else really.
I don't know if that's really
I
a
like
problem.
where she
That's
was
just...
before that. Then it's understandable. At the same time, I feel like you could have done more, and that's why I can appreciate the Peter Jackson version a bit, because she does get something to do with Kong, at least.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I don't think it's necessarily a problem, especially just in an hour and a half movie where the movie's not really about her. It's more about like the island and Kong. But I think that is one thing that Peter Jackson does get to kind of expand on, and of course
that's the 1933 versus 2005 kind of mentality. Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, he also, of course, completely changes the way Kong is with Anne. Like in the original movie, he's very much like the creepy stalker guy. By the time you get to New York, I laughed a little when he kidnaps her because she's talking about like how she never wants to see him again, and he's right outside her building.
Yeah.
And you get another one of those like close-ups of his face.
Well, and that's like an actual giant head that they built too, because they built the head and they built the hands for like the actress to go in.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to wrap my head around like, okay, how did they do this? I guess they really would have had to have built a giant hand.
That's how they did it.
Yeah.
That's what I said. I meant earlier when it's like it's just a mix of a bunch of different stuff that they did for the effects in this.
Yeah, they were very dedicated. Very dedicated.
Yeah, it was kind of that old school mentality with special effects where you don't think so much about how you're going to do it overall, but you have to think about how you have to do it shot for shot.
Yep.
Where it's like each shot can be a different effect sometimes. Yeah.
And if it has to be, that's what you have to spend your money on.
Yeah, exactly.
We are very fortunate that this film got critical acclaim.
So, going into a little territory that I am not familiar with, is this inspired in any way by the novel The Lost World, like the classic novel, or did that come out later?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
That
don't
with anything like I hate the way this sounds, but anything this older, I am way outside of like my area of expertise. Most of my movie and stuff knowledge is like from the 80s onwards.
So you're asking
Shut up,
about
Austin.
the world that was
What?
published, but you're talking about the Lost World that was written by Arthur Conan Doyle?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was released in 1912.
So I don't know much about that book, but I'm wondering if they're pulling some stuff from that. Because the Skull Island is kind of like a mix of different things. Because you got dinosaurs, you got the giant apes or giant ape, stuff like that. But yeah, I really liked this movie.
I don't know, but I think that's worth a look.
I don't know why that popped into my head, but
yeah.
Well, while you're looking that up, we should talk about the awesome T-Rex fight.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is also one of my favorite parts of the remake, the 05 remake to specify.
That's the ultimate. Okay, how do we get bigger? Now there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
Do you remember in the video game where you had to fight them? It was so much fun.
Mm-hmm. One of the best video game movie tie-ins, I would say.
That
and I feel like not a lot of people talk enough about that game because
that
really
and X-Men Origins Wolverine are like the top 2 movie adaptations for me.
You gotta shrug. That's all you get.
Well, I don't know if it would. I get maybe the best for you. I also played like the Lord of the Rings EA games as well.
I didn't really get too much into those.
Yeah, I haven't played the X-Men Origins Wolverine game tie-in.
The 360 version was fantastic.
Maybe I'll check it out. That's an aside.
Yeah, it was side tangent.
I'd say I'd almost say that if you're going to enjoy the Peter Jackson movie, the game is a good accompaniment.
And it's a good mix of styles because you get the first person shooter stuff as again, I'm terrible with names. You play as Driscoll, right?
Yes, Jack Driscoll.
Yeah, whoever Adrian Brody was in that movie. That was the first movie I ever saw with him in it too. It was weird. And then of course you get like third person, I don't know, action adventure, beat 'em up, whatever you want to call it, when you get to play as Kong. I mean, spoilers, but you get to play through the New York sequence as Kong. It's great.
And in bonus thing, you get to play it in an alternate version as Jack Driscoll flying a biplane as he shoots other biplanes to save Kong.
Yep.
I didn't know about that. Huh.
Yeah, you have to destroy the planes like in a certain speed. Like if you can do it in a certain time, then you get like an alternate ending where you play as Jack Driscoll and you shoot down the other planes and Kong lives.
But it's just a bonus
weird.
thing. Kong goes back to Skull Island. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's like a
That-
bonus alternate. It's just a speed thing. It's just if you can do it in time.
That reminds me of the episode 3 game. I don't remember what you had to do, but you could get the alternate ending where Anakin wins. They're
you have to like,
Mustafa.
play through it, I think, at
Mhm.
least once, and then
That game was also really good. It has some really cool lightsaber combat, which
What
is one
happened?
of
Yeah, what happened to our video game tie-ins? What happened to them?
them. They
Avengers
started.
didn't get one because it was canceled, and then they all died.
Dark Knight didn't get one because of Heath Ledger.
Well, no, it wasn't Heath Ledger. It was just they couldn't get it out in time, I think.
Oh, I had read it had to do with Heath Ledger passing away.
We got Arkham Asylum 3 years later. I think we're fine on that account. But
What kind of math are you doing?
Yeah, it was a year later.
really, but Arkham Asylum? I thought
Yeah, I think it was 2009.
Yeah, Dark Knight came out in 2008.
Oh yeah, you're right. It did. Sorry. Sorry. I thought.
Anyways, we're on like a complete.
Yeah,
we're completely off the rails. We're just talking about video game tie-in.
We're talking
Anyway,
about
Austin, tell us about the dinosaur fight in the original King Kong.
The dinosaur fight is awesome, and it's got the classic Godzilla kill where he snaps its jaw.
The classic
I think
Godzilla kill.
Or King Kong kill where he snaps its jaw, and then he plays with it afterwards. He's just like,
Well, he wants to make sure that the jaw is broken.
I know, but it's
yeah,
great.
well, it doesn't need to be there, but it just adds so much character. It's great.
Now I want to see Godzilla going around ripping people's jaws off with those like stubby arms.
Just like imagine just like King Kong versus Godzilla in like a Mortal Kombat situation, like Jackson just rips the skull off and then just lets King Kong like takes a cigar, just smokes it and then just puts it out.
Godzilla rips his own face off and then breathes fire onto King Kong and kills him.
Or no,
Okay.
a lightning bolt comes down and empowers him, and then he has the power of electricity. That's how he defeats
Somebody's been watching too much of the original King Kong versus Godzilla. Anyway, do we have anything else that we want to talk about with King Kong versus Godzilla? Because God damn it. The original King Kong from 1933. Is there anything else that we want to talk about before we get to our score for the movie?
Yes, my favorite, just kind of like effect that doesn't hold up in the movie, is when they kill it's a Stegosaurus, I think. And it's that shot where they're walking around it and they're just kind of like,
yeah.
And the background's moving behind them, but it's moving really slow.
It was pretty funny.
It's really funny. Like it's not bad, I don't think. It's just funny. Like it's just you laugh at it now.
Their machine guns just fire at the background image and try to simulate action. But those were the effects of the time. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the rear projection thing. It's just if they sped it up, maybe it would look a bit more real. It's just funny when you see them and they're like,
can you imagine this?
The background just goes
artificially made in like 60 frames per second. Can you imagine?
Probably ruined some of the effects.
I can't wait till like 120 frames per second, like retroactive filmmaking where we just make things seem so unreal.
Oh god, King Kong becomes like a 45-minute long film.
Well, even
by too fast.
Movies even at 30 frames per second will look weird because a movie, if I remember correctly, is like 24 frames per second.
Yes. The standard format is 24 frames.
Any frames you add, the movie's going to look off. Like I've watched clips of movies that have been like put in 60 FPS and it does not look good.
It gets to Uncanny Valley to a certain degree. If you understand where I'm going with that, it's like we see with our eyes at a very fast frame rate.
Yes,
So,
we do see with our eyes.
and the closer and closer cameras try to get to that, the more and more uncanny it seems. We register and we really know that it's not real because it seems to be. It just keeps approaching a point where it's like, and seizure.
What was?
That's me trying to see the original animated Mulan film in like 60 frames per second. Or something. I don't know.
That was some not safe for work material, let me tell you.
Yeah, just clip that out, everyone.
Oh no, that's staying in.
Whatever gets
No,
abused.
like he means clip it out so you can put it on something else.
Oh no. Okay, so Milton, what are your?
It's the Godzilla 2014. Godzilla like opens up the creature's mouth, breathes down its throat, and then your reaction is like, oh.
My point is, it looks weird. My point is,
All right, Milton, what are your final thoughts and score for King Kong from 1933?
I didn't even talk about the wall. The miniature stuff is great. I'll just quickly go over that. The sets are great. The designs are great. Anyway, for a score for this film, I would say, it's tough because it's hard for me to separate the history from this movie, but it just adds to the enjoyment for me. I'm going to say a 4 out of 5. I'm going to say a 4 out of 5.
I'm actually going to give it a 4 out of 5 as well. I really enjoyed this movie, and part of that might have been just I was surprised because I had no expectations going in. This is exactly up my wheelhouse. I love monster movies. I've always liked the plot of King Kong, especially the island stuff. Even in the Peter Jackson film, is what's always drawn me most to this material, and this movie does it fantastically. Watch this one and then watch the Peter Jackson version and then go watch Kong Skull Island because it's a completely different thing. It just has the giant ape in it. Like it has nothing to do with like the story of King Kong.
It the big monk
The
to
big
fight
monk.
the big Godzilla.
Well, that one's more Moby Dick than anything else. I'm gonna be the one that's separate from you guys then for scores. I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
Oh, well, interesting.
How dare you diverge from our great reviews?
Okay.
Fuck you guys.
So then I'm curious, Austin, if you're able to, what would you give the Peter Jackson version?
I think a 4.
Okay. So you like the original just slightly better?
Yes.
Okay.
I would agree. I think that the Peter Jackson version runs a little long in some sections. You can trim down the fat a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't particularly need to see King Kong and fake ice
skating.
Yeah. That scene with that, you can cut that out.
I also think the biplane scene goes on a little too long by the end of it. In the Peter Jackson one, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'd probably give that one a 4.5. So like I'm the opposite of Austin.
Like I said, his version's really good. It's just, and I think it's like on purpose. It's just kind of self-indulgent in places because he's trying to take this movie that he loves and turn it into this huge epic, like what he did with Lord of the Rings.
But it already was.
I mean, it's a great movie, but I don't know if it's on epic. It's an epic in the same way that Austin's using the word epic. Okay. So Austin, tell us about Godzilla from 1954.
Yep, 1954.
Okay.
Well, there goes huh?
That was just a twitch, nothing.
Oh, said, well, there goes Tokyo. They say he's got to go Godzilla.
Why do we even bring you on the show?
And that's the movie.
You've been obsessed with that song all week.
What? I think I've mentioned it once all week. That was right now.
No, you've mentioned it before.
That was because you and I watched King of the Monsters, in which they play that song, and I said, "Oh, this cover is bad."
Was that the only time? Okay, maybe. Apparently, I've got dementia tonight. I don't know.
God damn it!
I swear you've mentioned it more than that, but it's whatever. Tell us about
that
Godzilla.
song's also awesome.
It is awesome.
That is basically the movie. Japan exists, and Godzilla shows up, and he's gonna wreck it.
Yeah. So obviously, this is a much. I would also say this is a simple film, at least on the surface, but obviously, this is very of its time, but it's a very much like a anti-nuclear bomb movie.
It was very much dealing with Japan's history or what Japan was doing at that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I were allowed to describe this film in one word, it would be haunting.
Yes. I'd say it's even more of a horror film than King Kong is, actually.
Absolutely.
And I take the stakes of the film very seriously. The film does that for me, especially. This is one of the horror movies with big monsters, where I can take the human characters very seriously because they actually seem to act like real people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even there was a part. It's right after the big Godzilla attack in the city, and we're seeing the fallout of people. And there's just this little kid just screaming, and there's just a moment where I just stopped and was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, the kid screaming for her mother was like, "Wow, great job, filmmakers! You got an emotional impulse out of me."
Well done. And with a child actor in 1954.
And I think one of this movie's strongest suits as well is sound, because Godzilla's roar, which would later go on to become iconic, in this movie it's like it's raw and loud and overpowering, so it feels like you're there. But then, for instance, much like Milton's typing, when we're but anyway, versus like the scene we were just talking about with the girl crying for her mom, it's almost completely silent other than some background noise. And this movie really knows how to use sound to its advantage.
And what's amazing is, because obviously with King Kong, they got actual animal sound effects for King Kong. Mm-hmm. But do you guys know what the classic Godzilla roar is?
Tell us, Austin. What is it?
It is a person with, I think it's like a glove they use to like clean dishes with, rubbing their hand down a cello.
Yeah.
I believe you, but I need to like see this before I can like imagine it.
I mean, just imagine, with how a violin is, with kind of how some of those strings work with certain frequencies, you rub it down a bit and you slow the pitch down, then you get
it's got that
like I said, I'm not doubting him. It's something I need to see, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it might not be specifically a cello, but it is one of those stringed instruments. It's somebody rubbing just down the string.
And obviously, one of the best.
I have a guitar here.
Don't even.
Can we recreate it? Let's find out.
Just obviously, one of the greatest, just like roars or like sounds in a film ever. It's very iconic.
And it's amazing by what it actually is, that it's as powerful as it is.
Another thing I guess some people could not like about 2014 Godzilla is that the roar is so different. That could probably be another reason why they might.
Is it?
It is very different, as someone who has seen like the comparisons between each of them.
Okay, so I have a thing with the MonsterVerse Godzilla roar, which is that at the end of it, there's that like sound effect, and for the longest time, I thought that was like a little guitar riff in the soundtrack that they did every time he roared in that film, and then it continued past it, and I realized like, oh no, that's supposed to be a sound effect at the end of his roar. It's hard to explain when you're not listening to it.
Yeah.
It
never bothered me, to be honest.
It doesn't bother me especially, but like I find they also carry it like a lot longer. He'll roar for like a minute straight, and it's a little awkward.
Oh yeah, not that like noise you notice. I just mean the roar being, if it is like being slightly different. Like I feel it still carries that same, I guess, tone of the original Godzilla. Not this movie, because this movie's roar is played differently. But I mean, from the roar what you get in movies like Godzilla versus King Kong, the original.
Sure.
Well, I would love to see. What's that, sorry?
They are slightly different between each film, as I've noticed, but most of them have the same origin.
Just depends how the hand goes.
So, just real quick, since we're on the topic of roar, one thing I hate about the original King Kong versus Godzilla is they have him roar like 60 times in a row when he's fighting King Kong. And it's like, okay, minimize. Because I feel like there's just scenes of them standing there roaring at each other.
It's two guys in suits
playing grab ass. But like when I saw 2014 in the theater, the roar was like deafening. I would love to see this original film in the theater because I think it would even top that.
I would too.
Or even just the sounds they use for him stomping, which is very effective.
Yeah.
It was giving me some Jaws vibes in that. Like, obviously that's later, but just in the sense where you're building to it, where you're like, oh god, like it's coming.
Well, and King Kong, of course, has characters and like they're very well written. But that movie is still very much about the spectacle of like the island and the creatures. Whereas I feel like this takes a different approach. It's very character driven, but then you've got the spectacle, but it's also played more for horror. In this movie.
Yeah, they actually support each other rather than clashing against each other, as definitely a lot of the Toho sequels have done. I would say.
It still astounds me after watching this movie that Godzilla is what he is now after this movie.
Well, it's kind of amazing. I was thinking about it the other day that because obviously he's a symbol for the nuclear attack in Japan. It's amazing that he ended up becoming this kind of superhero in Japan where he goes around protecting Tokyo from other monsters. That's just a very strange juxtaposition.
It's no wonder why I like the Shin Godzilla movie, because that is a true Godzilla remake / sequel kind of thing, I would say.
I was very much someone who it's that movie. I would almost equate to the Peter Jackson remake of King Kong. It's not an even comparison, but it is somebody taking that original idea and doing their own thing with it.
Yeah,
and I don't think America would ever make something like Shin Godzilla because Godzilla is so recognizable, and that movie throws it all out and is like, no, this is our version, and they take those themes and that kind of fear of the original film, updates it, and then everything with Godzilla himself is almost completely reinvented.
Yeah, the rumored production about Shin Godzilla said that it was kind of ended abruptly because they wanted to do more. That there would have been more forms for Godzilla to the point where he would have become humanoid, and then like a hive consciousness, and then would transform more to the point where he would eventually just become the universe itself. He would transcend the laws of physics and everything, and essentially just Big Bang things. Like again, it would just spiral.
So that's probably what the ending with his tail is, right? Because you get where you see his tail and there's like all the people at the end of it, I think, if I remember correctly.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Me personally, that's a little too far for a Godzilla movie. I get that they're doing their own thing, but stop with the giant lizard. Like, I don't need to see Godzilla become the universe.
Well, the reason why I can understand what they were doing with that is because, especially dealing with like nuclear technology, and the fact that man is the idea is man fulfills his own doom, and that's the big theme. I would say,
and that's
Or
fine. But at some point, you've taken the idea too far, or at
well,
least you're taking an existing property too far from what it was.
Well, I think there's an argument to be made that Shin Godzilla goes way farther. That's why I don't think it's something that they would make in America.
No, I agree with you about Shin Godzilla itself. I'm talking about the stuff they didn't get to do.
No, I know, but I'm saying like it's already completely reinventing. But we should probably jump onto the actual original film.
The last thing I want to say about Shin Godzilla is a comparison to the original. Is Shin Godzilla obviously is very much a love letter to this movie, but the thing that I hated about Shin Godzilla that I love about this one is Godzilla always looks like a threat. I couldn't take Godzilla and Shin Godzilla's like first two forms seriously, because doesn't one of them have like googly eyes and it's like a cocoon?
The belly crawling one certainly has googly eyes in it.
I couldn't take that
See,
serious.
for me, it's so uncanny valley that it's really creepy. And I'm just like, oh, I don't want that thing near me.
Well, see, I didn't even when I watched it, I didn't even realize it was Godzilla, and I think I was like just casually chatting in Discord with you about it, and then it transformed, and I was like, wait a minute, that's Godzilla. But anyway, the original movie, obviously, very much of its time, holds up wonderful. Austin, when did you first see this movie? Challenging his dementia.
Probably shortly after 2014, because that was the first real Godzilla film I ever saw, and then that I got the I think it was a Criterion release. It was a DVD set of a few of them, and I watched that one, Raids Again, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and Invasion of Astro Monster, like all like kind of back to back.
Yeah.
Within like a few weeks. Yeah.
Okay. And obviously, of course, they're very minimalized in their use of Godzilla here. He's used just as much as he's needed. Obviously, for self-indulgent reasons, I wish he was more in the movie more, but that would ruin what they're doing with this movie. That's just I like Godzilla. I like seeing him on screen.
But it's a pretty different design in this movie. Comparative, at least in the face, not so much the body.
I admittedly had a hard time seeing some of him. At least on the HBO Max transfer, which is what I watched. Some of the shots are dark enough; it's almost hard to make out some of the details.
Oh, interesting. I have that big book set they put out a few years ago, or maybe like 2 years ago, from Criterion, and it looks really good.
I keep meaning to get that, but it's like $130.
Yeah, I got it when it was like, actually, no, I think it was about that. But now they have 2 for Gamera, and I'm excited to get those.
Yeah, I need to see more Godzilla films. Honestly, so I first encountered this movie. I kept hearing about it. Then I saw a DVD in my library because they had a movie section in a library. Sure, and
library doesn't.
And I decided not to take it with me. Huge mistake. And then I had the opportunity to see it at some point, and I watched a little bit of it, and then I just forgot to pick it up. Another huge mistake. So I finally finished it, and I'm finally glad that I have, because it's been a fantastic experience.
I also will say I've never seen the American version, or like the dubbed version. I know they add scenes. That's why I called it the American one. Yeah, it's one of those things where I just don't care enough. I've only ever watched the original. And I made that mistake with Raids Again when I watched that. I was like, oh, I'll watch the dubbed version. And I made it like 20 minutes in, and they're like, oh, God, it's Gigantus. Run! I was like, wait.
People and your dubs over subs thing, you need to always seek out the subs. Always.
No, that's what I made that mistake.
You're lecturing somebody
and never
who doesn't
made it
even
again.
You're lecturing someone about subs versus dubs who doesn't even watch anime.
Yeah, that's fair. But
yeah,
all
but
the
that's how I
first one,
watch.
you
That's
plenty
how I
of time.
watch most foreign films, though, is subbed.
Yeah.
I take it a case by case basis. I watched the original version for this, mostly because I think that's the only one on HBO Max. I could be wrong,
The
but
American
also
version's
I don't want to watch the American version because it's inherently a different film.
it's a bastardized version.
Yeah. Now I did watch the American version for King Kong versus Godzilla because that's the only thing I could find. We'll get into that a little bit later. That'll be a very quick discussion. I admit again with this movie, I'm having trouble remembering some of the plot elements. Part of that
It's
is
a lot of just Godzilla attacks something, and we react to it, and we just kind of deal with our characters and how they're dealing with what's happening.
Part of that is since Saturday, I've watched like 7 Godzilla movies. Well, because we watched the 3 that we did. No, sorry, 6 Godzilla movies. Because we watched the 2 MonsterVerse movies. I watched this one. I watched King Kong versus Godzilla. I feel like I watched another one, but my mind is blanking now. But anyway, I've got like a bunch of different Godzilla movies all up in my head right now.
Well, this is the King one.
This is okay. So this is the best one. I won't dispute that. It is not my favorite one, but it is the best one.
No, Godzilla is one of those things where whenever you rank the movies, you kind of have to take this one off because it's automatically number 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so just out of curiosity,
no point of even mentioning it. Like it's just obviously the original is the best one.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, what is everyone's favorite Godzilla film?
It's Invasion of Astro Monster, I think is the American title. It's the one where they all go to space and fight King Ghidorah. It's great.
That sounds awesome.
So I have exactly 3 films in my head because I've not seen any of the others. But I will get into it. I will. It's just trying to tackle Toho's entire scope of all these movies. It's like, where do I begin? But yeah, this one I obviously think is the best. So I'm going to say I've enjoyed it the most. But I appreciate Shin Godzilla. And I think it has some great stuff in it as well. Godzilla versus King Kong is stupid, but it's some of it's fun. Some of it makes me laugh. So,
yeah. For me, it's obviously this. Like I said, it's number 1 just automatically, and then it's the one that I said, and then it's Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Okay, cool.
Which has Godzilla and Rodan basically playing volleyball with a rock for like 45 minutes. So Mothra shows up and is like, "Hey assholes, we gotta fight Ghidorah. Stop doing that."
Mine is Godzilla 2000, which I watched quite a bit on VHS as a kid.
Godzilla 2000?
Yeah.
It was the Toho answer to the 98 American film.
No, that is Final Wars.
No, Final Wars is later. 2000 is the one directly after.
Oh, sorry.
You're thinking because they fight.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
But 2000 also mentions the 98 one because I think it's 2000. There's a line where somebody says Godzilla attacked New York once, and somebody goes, "No, he didn't." They just think he did, but it wasn't really Godzilla.
So I love lines like that because I will admit I grew up watching 98 as well. I was like 6 years old when that movie came out. When you're 6 years old and that's your first exposure to the name Godzilla, like you think it's awesome. I've kind of divorced Godzilla from that movie, and maybe now I wouldn't like it because I haven't seen it in a while. But like up until I was a teenager, I watched that movie religiously, and I just like separated it from Godzilla.
The only good thing about Godzilla 98 is that it's basically a Simpsons reunion, and that like half of the cast of that show is in that movie for some reason. And I don't know why.
That sounds hilarious. And it sounds awesome.
But
which,
one thing
I meant to mention it with the last film, but if you guys haven't seen the King Kong parody they do on The Simpsons for one of the Treehouse of Horrors. It's brilliant. And they do the King Kong zoom in face shot like 50 times in like the 7-minute short. And it's always just the same reused animation, and it's awesome.
I still remember the Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny. One of the most classic YouTube videos of all time, and just Godzilla is front and center.
Godzilla took a bite out of Optimus Prime, like Scruff McGruff took a bite out of crime. Heck yeah.
So one thing that this movie is very good at doing as well is just showing the damage that, like, this Godzilla is a force of nature.
Yes. Eventual force of nature.
There is no reason for it. There is no like logic behind it. He just goes.
There's no real stopping it either, yeah.
Yeah. He will continue to do as he will unless someone makes the sacrifice.
Okay, so we're going to spoil this as well because this is the main thing I can't remember.
How does this movie like a 70-year-old film by this point? We might as well.
It's fine if you're wanting to avoid
88 other Godzilla films. So
yeah, how does this movie how do they end this movie? I cannot remember.
With the oxygen destroyer.
Yeah. So we have our young aspiring doctor who understands I've created something that could be even worse than nuclear arms, which puts huge moral quandaries on him to the point where if I even discuss this with people, I could be putting the world in danger that's even greater than any Godzilla could unleash upon the world. And he creates the oxygen destroyer and says, okay, if I'm going to use this in this way, I have to make sure that I destroy all records of this, and I have to kill myself at the end of this. He makes this conclusion early on, and then he fulfills it at the end when he uses the oxygen destroyer to basically just kill Godzilla.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the only films, in a Godzilla film, which Godzilla dies.
Yep.
Probably isn't the only.
And they do a follow-up to this in one of the movies where the skeleton of this Godzilla is the base for Mechagodzilla.
Oh, interesting. I've always loved Mechagodzilla just on a design level. So I really should watch those movies because that first one's on HBO Max.
Yeah, sequel to Shin Godzilla. That Godzilla versus the ultimate apex, like Mechagodzilla Predator. Just battle them out in space or something like that. That would be great.
Sure. I don't know. Like, I like Shin Godzilla. Don't get me wrong. I'm still not a big fan of their like Godzilla itself, if that makes sense. Like, it's a great movie. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. Like, it's I don't know. It's not Godzilla.
With this film,
Austin's like, I want to talk about this one.
When are we gonna get to the fireworks factory?
What is that from?
Huh?
What is that from?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's from The Simpsons.
Oh, that one? Oh, I thought it was Red Letter Media. Sorry.
Get out of here,
reference that.
They probably reference it. So,
Okay. But anyway, what were you going to say about Godzilla from the original?
I was going to talk about the effects in it, because just like King Kong, they do a mix of like miniatures and stuff, and it all looks really great. And obviously they couldn't afford to do the stop motion, which is why they have a guy in a suit. But I think they do a good job of shooting it, so it never feels like it's just some dude in a suit walking around.
And I'm actually going to say, real quick, just to capitalize on what Austin was saying. I'm actually glad that they didn't, because I think something like claymation would have ruined the horror of this. Because, yeah, it's a guy in a suit, but it's shot in a way that still feels like a real giant lizard is attacking Tokyo. So I'm glad that they were forced to go that route.
Yeah, it was a smart route as well, and this is a film that's great in black and white for one of these reasons, especially because Godzilla does most of his stuff at night, which makes great use of lighting techniques to make sure that we don't see as much of the guy in the suit, any more than we need to get the effect of Godzilla's presence in the shots that he's in.
And there's just great use of miniatures where you're getting to destroy lots of that stuff just constantly, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think the thing I respect most about this movie is this little, like, I'm assuming very low budget horror flick from Japan has spawned one of the most just successful franchises in history. Like, Godzilla is a pop culture icon.
It just hit it at the right spot during an economic boom right after Japan got slapped really hard out of World War II. It was, it was a resurgence of their culture.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
also
and you can't have this without that like horrific disaster at the end of World War II. So it's very much about that.
Yeah, that's how we were justified to bomb Hiroshima. We got Godzilla. That's a terrible thing to say, but
I also can't believe that less than 10 years later, King Kong vs. Godzilla came out.
Milton's gonna, when we're done, he's gonna go and edit a version of just footage of Hiroshima to the Blue Oyster Cult song.
Oh my god. Oh man.
Nagasaki, jeez.
Oh no. They say he's got to go Godzilla.
No, what I would do is Dr. Strangelove, the guy writing the bomb, would shows. That's terrible. Terrible.
Anyway, so this movie obviously sets the precedent of Godzilla is not the good guy, which lasts up through at least King Kong versus Godzilla. Is it right after that, Austin, that he starts to become like the good guy?
Yes. No, because Mothra is like the protector character. And Godzilla's like an asshole, and Ghidorah, the three-headed dragon. That's like a whole thing. Is Mothra has to like get him and Rodan to stop fighting so that he can actually come and help fight Ghidorah. But you also get stuff like GMK, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, the greatest titled film of all time.
Did you try to say that 5 times fast?
Oh, nice. It does exist. Okay, yeah.
It does exist.
There are plenty of Godzilla alignment charts.
But in Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, they reverse it, and they make Godzilla the villain and King Ghidorah as like an Earth protector in that movie.
Weird. I really want to go through these movies at some point. I've been in a big kaiju mood since Saturday night when we watched the.
I need to see more kaiju movies with people.
Which, I will say, if there's one thing I love about the MonsterVerse movies, is they get the kaiju stuff so right in those movies. At least after.
Well, John, if you're that excited, I want to hear you be the one to say Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack 5 times fast.
Oh. No, I can't even say a sentence without
I'll admit defeat.
I give up.
That's one of those movies where you have to say the title every time because it's ridiculous.
So
it's like an entire paragraph.
Austin, is there anything else that you want to talk about with the original Godzilla or give your final thoughts?
One of the scenes I really like in this is Godzilla's destroying Tokyo, which is a very powerful scene. And you have the newscaster, I think he's might be on the radio. He's commentating on the whole thing, and he's watching as Godzilla slowly comes to him, and he knocks the tower that he's on over. And I think that scene's really great.
Exactly. Milton, anything else that you want to discuss or final thoughts?
Final thoughts, I would say if you want to make a good Godzilla movie, make sure that the human element actually helps support the monster element too. Don't forget that you can make a great film that has big dumb action in it. You can do that. This film proves that you can do this. You don't have to make terrible Godzilla movies.
I will admit I'm lowering my standards somewhat, but especially with Godzilla movies, as long as the monster action's good, I'm satisfied.
But we can have both, and my point is that it's not impossible to have both.
No, it is impossible.
No, this film proves you wrong, John. You're wrong.
I will also add, if you want to be like a big, serious, look how important we are movie, you can't just be schlock, which is what 2014 doesn't understand, and that it is like a schlocky Godzilla film, but it's also a look how important and serious this is. And I don't think those tones work together in that movie.
Well, you'll notice
you don't
they
want to go
dropped-
far on the other end. I mean to say.
Well, and you notice they dropped that immediately. Because by the next Godzilla movie, it knows exactly what it is.
Mhm.
Not to say that there's anything wrong with a big dumb action movie too. We get the new Godzilla versus King Kong. It is what it is. It acknowledges what it is, and it tries to just do what it does as best as it can.
And that's what Invasion of it's either Invasion of Monster Zero or Invasion of Astro Monster. I can't remember what the exact title is. But it's very much that, where it's like they just go to the moon and they beat up King Ghidorah a bit, and they go to Earth and they beat him up some more. And Godzilla dances at one point, which is perfect.
A dance of joy.
Yeah, it's where he does the famous where he's like, he does the safety dance.
Yeah, I was about to sing it, and I realized I can't.
Again with the singing.
Anyways,
so final thoughts and review and score. Okay. This is my score is based purely on entertainment alone. I'm gonna give this one a 3.5.
Ooh.
Ow, God.
I'll give this a 4.5 out of 5.
That's what I'm gonna go with. I'm giving both films the same score.
I'd say Godzilla has a bit of an edge over King Kong for me, just a little.
Yeah, they're hard films to compare for me because they're both doing such wildly different things. This one's a more impactful film, but I like both of them for what they're doing.
I would
pretty equally. Godzilla might nudge King Kong out. It's very like.
I'd say
Depends what I'm
Godzilla
in
is
the mood
more
for.
even film than I would say King Kong is personally.
That's fair.
I really want to put an asterisk next to my review as well, as I shouldn't have watched it at 1 a.m. when I was exhausted. Because that is not a movie to watch when you're just ready to go to sleep.
No, like John was expecting the Common Core Toho Godzilla, not the original one. That's
And then subtitles started, and he was like, "What the fuck is this? A book, or am I watching a film?"
Well, I've seen this before. I knew what to expect. I didn't expect myself to be so tired after we ended the stream last night. I thought I would have enough energy to.
You struggle through some gaming sections. I would imagine you would have wanted to relax a little bit. Yeah.
I'm telling you. But anyway, I'm gonna get that Criterion collection as soon as I can. I want to revisit this movie, especially since the Criterion collection is probably the definitive way to watch the original, and do it while I'm awake. If you guys don't follow me on Letterboxd, feel free. It's Subject879. I will post a review of the movie there after I've had another viewing with it, because I very much feel like my score for this could change with another viewing. So we're gonna do a little bit of a bonus segment. This has been probably the longest episode we've done, mostly just because we've been just chatting about whatever.
Yeah, you guys didn't think that these two films were big enough to.
No, he didn't. I was just okay with adding a third film if you guys wanted to.
I did think that, and I was wrong.
Yeah, the second you guys said we should do 3 films, I was like, oh, I don't know. those 2 original films have so much meat on them.
Yeah, so I thought I might get some more meat on the bones with King Kong versus Godzilla, the original one, than I thought. Then I realized, oh no, this film was terrible.
This film is schlock.
Okay, so since the new Godzilla versus Kong, and can I just say how happy I am that they gave it at least a slightly different title, just to differentiate from the original movie?
Thank you for doing that. Please, more people should do that.
But anyway, we're gonna talk just very briefly about the original Godzilla versus King Kong. This was my first of the original like Japanese Godzilla King Kong movies. But obviously I've only seen the American dub. Milton, which version did you watch?
I also saw the dub.
Okay. And I'm assuming same for you, Austin, when you saw it a few years ago?
No, I feel like I watched it subbed because, like I said, after Godzilla Raids Again, I was like, I will never watch these dubbed again.
See, the only thing
Because
that it might
early
be...
Godzilla films are all trashed by the dubs.
Yeah.
I'm sure the later ones are probably fine, but the original ones, they completely fuck with the movie. Like I said, Raids Again is changed to be Gigantus the Fire Monster. So they call him Gigantus throughout the entire film. Godzilla versus Mothra or Mothra versus Godzilla. There's two films. They use both of those titles. I don't remember which one the first one is. It might be Mothra versus Godzilla. Is retitled to be like Godzilla versus the Thing. It's just like that's a great title, guys.
So the only thing is the Japanese dub of that movie is really hard to find. So I'm wondering if it was the American one you saw of that.
I thought the Japanese sub already, but
Well, but it's not as hard. Okay, it was a few years ago. It was harder to find, but since Criterion released it, because it's in that box set that you have, because the original this movie is notoriously like not well preserved. Like apparently the original negatives are really bad. I'm not gonna say this is a great movie. In fact, it's like the first half is really terrible. It's just there to get Kong to Japan. The fight is really fun. Like I don't understand certain things like why Godzilla claps all the time, but
well, that's why the American version adds the line where they're like Godzilla has like a peanut brain, is to explain why he's constantly clapping.
Oh, okay. I mean, I wish they hadn't called attention to it, but I guess
they're like Godzilla's very stupid. So then you see him and he's just walking around like,
yeah.
Like, oh, but they're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say they're wrong. He comes off very stupid in this movie, and I think part of it also is like the suits in this movie are kind of bad. At least, like in the face, is both Godzilla and King
isn't
Kong.
that the like peak era of Cookie Monster Godzilla, where he just has Cookie Monster's face, or is that a little bit after?
It's it doesn't look great, but King Kong looks worse.
King Kong looks
King
100
Kong
times
looks pretty bad, yeah.
King Kong's so bad in this movie. I realized, oh yeah, I never want to see King Kong, a guy in a King Kong suit. It looks bad.
I don't think that. Okay, so with the Kong suit,
well,
it
would have been so much better if he was stop motioned and he was like 15 feet tall.
I mean, I guess it has to be considering the scene, but you could have improved the design of the costume a bit, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they got real creative with some of that stuff, especially with characters like Mothra or King Ghidorah, where they have to be like a little bit crazier with their design.
But yeah, the budget for this film was $12,000 in U.S. currency.
Mm-hmm.
The profit in U.S. currency at the time, box office, $3 million, $193,000.
That's a good return.
That's insane.
Well, and I don't know how much you know about these early Godzilla films, but there's a point where the budget really starts to hurt them, and you eventually get stuff like one of the Godzilla films is just a clip show, and it's a movie. Like they released a clip show as a movie.
So
where there's just like a few scenes that kind of link it together, but you go from like different Godzilla fight to different Godzilla fight, and it's just one's reused from other movies.
So to comment first, I don't think the King Kong suit itself is bad. I think it's the face part that's bad because he looks like he's on drugs. Secondly, so I
Yeah.
was looking for a picture of the costumes, and I found the VHS box art that sold me this movie, and look how misleading that is.
Hold on, I can't really see that.
Oh wow, the ape
That looks
suit
like the
so
70s Kong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
That is
What?
the box art they sold me on this movie.
That is so misleading.
But no,
And
to
then
answer
you
your
watch the movie
question,
and it's like the fat Thor of King Kongs.
to answer your question, this is not the Cookie Monster Eye era.
Oh, okay. I thought that was later, but I couldn't remember off the top of my head. Because that's my favorite, just like goofy looking Godzilla.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the new King Kong versus Godzilla is making profits. It's already exceeded like $120 million.
Or is that what you mean?
Yeah, it was at 122 before it really opened. Like yesterday when I looked, it was at 122 million. And that was just based off of like foreign markets.
Yeah.
So
Obviously,
it's definitely going to be kind of the first big movie of Corona.
Obviously, I'm the only one here who's seen it, so I won't spoil anything. But if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's fantastic.
Does King Kong get hit by a lightning bolt and then that empowers him for some reason?
Do you know why that happens, Milton? Do you know the backstory to that?
No.
So this film was originally supposed to be Godzilla versus Frankenstein, and that is just a carryover from that script.
Okay, so here's the weird thing: is I was looking at this.
Can you imagine that though? Godzilla versus, you have to expand him even more than you have to do King Kong.
So according to Wikipedia, though, you were wrong about
400-foot tall man out of reused body parts.
As an interjection, what's up?
You were wrong about that because apparently the original script was Kong versus Frankenstein.
Oh, it was Kong versus Frankenstein.
Oh,
so that means that Godzilla got the Kong role and Kong got the Frankenstein role.
Apparently, the concept was developed by the original stop motion animator from the 33 film.
Oh, what are you doing, guys?
Where Kong would fight against a giant Frankenstein monster in San Francisco. And
I think Frankenstein is in King Kong Escapes, like Dr. Frank. I think there's a reference to that. Let me look this up. Hold on.
Okay. But while you're doing that, but basically a bunch of different things happened, a bunch of different proposals, and eventually it came to what we got of Godzilla versus King Kong. So I still don't understand why Kong has lightning powers, but I'm pretty sure it's because, and I can't remember where I heard this, so I can't cite any sources, but I have heard it is because they felt like Kong was too underpowered to fight Godzilla, so they gave him that to give him an even playing field.
Well, I mean, he is, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, he absolutely is. He is like 100 feet too short, and he has no real power, unlike Godzilla, who's a walking nuke.
Yeah.
And a giant lizard. And I mean, even the new one, they size him up, but they have to give him that weird battle axe thing in order to kind of power him up.
Yeah, because otherwise there's no chance in hell where Godzilla would lose.
Well, it's the Batman versus Superman thing, right? Where no matter what, you have to give Batman like some sort of in for how he can even fight Superman, because it's so one-sided. There's no fight there.
But the difference is that I root for Godzilla.
Well, it is interesting.
Godzilla's awesome.
It is interesting that you mentioned that, because this like clash of Kong versus Godzilla, I feel it was very much the Batman versus Superman of like the kaiju world. Sure, like Godzilla's fought all kinds of monsters, but like it's almost a different feeling when you get to see him fight Kong.
It's like America versus Japan.
That's what I was going to say. It's more America versus Japan than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it would have been America versus Germany if it were Godzilla or King Kong versus Frankenstein. But
my favorite part of the American dub is where not only they call Godzilla stupid to explain the clapping, but they explain why King Kong is smarter than him.
Yeah, they say that, but at the same time, and this is also a really bizarre thing, it's like just with all the America versus Japan thing, our American opponent has to be drugged with liquid morphine like, every so often just to make him docile. I can't imagine him somehow being still retaining any sort of intelligence after just drinking this narcotic for so long.
There's some like weird, and there's some weird stuff with like the Kong mythology in this movie. Obviously, I know like you can't take these movies on like a serious, especially this one, on like a serious level at all. But like, what's up with the song that puts him to sleep?
Well, that sounds like it's just a very Japanese thing because it's a Godzilla versus or Terror of Mechagodzilla. One of them, there's like a song that wakes up King Caesar.
Okay.
And then he wakes up and he gets his ass kicked throughout the whole movie. So it's like I don't even know why he was there. But you get stuff like that. Like I think the Mothra girls have songs here and there in different movies. So that just sounds like it's the Japanese thing.
And then the whole thing with the Islanders is just, I think it's supposed to be funny, but it's just kind of weird.
Well, it's slightly less racist than the 1933 version, I guess.
Do you remember any about
crazy
that, Austin?
Black man who've been here?
Do you remember any of the stuff with the Islanders? Do you remember any of the stuff with the Islanders and King Kong versus Godzilla?
No, but I'm guessing it's all a bunch of Japanese people painted up, though, right?
Yes, and the way they win them over is they give them all cigarettes, and they go out of their way to. They give
them
radio first, and then they did the cigarettes.
Well, radio did kill the video star, but
anyway, what the thing that got me, and it's kind of funny in almost a satirical way, and I've heard that the original Japanese version of this movie is very much a satire, and then the American version just butchers all of that by cutting out most of it. They give this little kid like 3 cigarettes and just send him off to get lung cancer apparently, and then that's how they're able to get access to Kong because they've given the people cigarettes.
Well, most of the people in that story probably die of radiation poisoning anyway. So,
or smallpox. That's what they loaded those cigarettes with.
But obviously, the like highlight of this movie is the fight. How do you guys feel about the fight on its own?
The fight is hilarious. There are so many just moments in that fight. Like you could break down a top 10 just moments in that fight scene where you get stuff like the always classic King Kong shoving the tree down Godzilla's throat. But it's a guy with a mask, so like he doesn't have a throat, so it just hits that mask and it's just like stuck there and they just shake for a second. There's like the 3 seconds where it turns into stop motion where Godzilla jumps up and kicks King Kong. And it's just like the Godzilla toy that you can get like at the dollar store. And it's just, there are just so many little moments here and there. There's, King Kong where they're flying him in and he's like on the strings and he's just like all stupid looking.
My favorite is when Godzilla first breathes fire at Kong and Kong just kind of looks down and then looks up at him like, what the fuck was that?
It's like I'm fighting a fire-breathing lizard. What the heck is going on here? I'm just a monk against the Godzilla.
So we're not gonna rate King Kong versus Godzilla because I don't even know how to begin to rate that movie. Like it's not good, but I enjoy watching it. So everybody, today is obviously the release of of Godzilla versus Kong. Are you Team Godzilla or Team Monkey?
Godzilla. Get out of here! It's a one-sided fight. Like if King Kong wins,
you say that, but how many times has Batman beaten Superman?
Yeah, but that's because writers like to jerk themselves off on Batman. So they're like, Batman's gotta win.
I mean, I agree that Batman's probably going to win because he's the more popular character, but it's not like, I don't know. It's like, at least in the good stories, it's always done in a way that makes sense.
I'm team Cloverfield Monster.
That wasn't
So
enough.
you're 2014.
I'm just waiting for that.
I'm Team Monkey.
It's obviously Godzilla. There's no way that King Kong stands a chance. But I mean, whoever wins, we lose anyway. So
Yeah, exactly.
No, this isn't Alien. This isn't Alien versus Predator, you idiot.
No.
Whoever loses, we win. Is that what it is?
That is the other thing I wanted to mention about King Kong versus Godzilla. At least the American version, because I've heard the Japanese one ends differently. But it's really weird how this movie ends, where they just like both go in the water and then you don't see what happens.
So that was actually a thing I was going to mention about it. That is an urban legend. They both end the exact same way, but the internet didn't exist. So America was like, well, in our version, King Kong wins, and I assume in the Japanese version, Godzilla wins. But no, both of them, they both fall into the sea, which is a very classic way to end your versus film. That's how Frankenstein versus the Wolfman ends as well. And it's just we can't, and that's how Freddy versus Jason ends. Which is the ultimate. If you let one of them win, you piss off the other side of the fan base, and if you let that one win, then you piss off the other side. So you let them fall into the sea. Neither of them win.
Okay, so my only
both
question,
sides get to go happy.
My only question about that logic is, you do that, but then, and Freddy vs. Jason does this as well, you kind of show a clear-cut victor right after that.
But Freddy versus Jason's like, you get the Jason walking out, and then you get the Freddy winking thing where it's like, oh, but he's back to the dream world. He's being Freddy again. So it's
well, yeah,
both
with
just
Freddy
kind of going
versus
off to do their
Jason.
thing.
With that, I'll give you that too. But with King Kong versus Godzilla, and you might be right, that's just like Godzilla, he's swimming away. But I don't feel like they communicate that well, so it just kind of looks like Kong won and is just walking away. Do you agree or disagree?
Because you see him get out. Well, yeah, it would just be Godzilla's back in the ocean. Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, I never read it that way.
I feel like King Kong has to win in this case, because if King Kong lost, Godzilla would just emerge from the ocean again. He would just kill everyone.
No, see, Monkey gets zapped by lightning and go.
But you do get in the credits, in the Japanese version, you get like Godzilla's roar and then King Kong's roar, I think it is. And in the American one, it's just King Kong. That's the closest you get to, well, King Kong won in the American version.
Oh, okay.
Versus the Japanese one.
Like, the debate is dumb. I mean, it's fun, sure, but I mean, either Godzilla wins and we get radiation poisoning eventually as he kills everyone, or King Kong wins and he suffers withdrawal after he eats all the red berries, and then he just goes apeshit and he'll kill everyone anyway.
And then the biplanes get him.
Okay, so I'm team
the biplanes didn't kill him. Godzilla did.
No,
I'm team Kong. I'll be in the minority on this one.
Well, yeah, because you're just wrong.
Oh, I love
Since
both.
You've already seen it. That'd be like the ultimate piss off if King Kong wins in that movie. Because it would be just like, no, you'd have to contrive a way because it just doesn't make sense.
No, Godzilla just tries the red berries too, and then they just both get really high.
I'm not saying anything. I like both.
Godzilla and King Kong are both standing around like, whoa, is White Rabbit by Jefferson Starship plays in the background.
The humans just take off their suits and it's just them in the scene.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying I love both.
Even though they're CGI, they take off their head and it's a dude.
I'm sorry, John. Continue.
I'm not saying anything about the movie. I love both monsters, obviously, but I like King Kong slightly more. I think that could change once I see more Godzilla movies. But I'm curious what they do in the future if since this movie is doing obviously very well, all things considered.
Well,
So
it'll all
Austin,
be they'll have to renegotiate a contract because their contract's over now.
yeah. So Austin, since you final time before you see it, you said Saturday. Any predictions for Kong versus Godzilla?
Well, I don't know what spoilers I'm allowed to say.
They probably fall into the ocean.
You know what? This is the very end of the podcast for the night. Full spoiler, potential spoilers.
Yeah, but what about Milton? I don't want to spoil it for him.
I don't care.
Nobody cares.
Okay. My prediction is Godzilla and King Kong fight a bit. One of them wins. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna go by the trailer, and so they fight on the boat for the first time. I'm gonna say that either ends in a draw, or probably does, unless it's maybe like a Godzilla kind of wins because it's his territory, and King Kong kind of gets away, or it's a draw, and then when they fight in the city, it should be Godzilla kicks King Kong's ass, but it might be that King Kong beats Godzilla because they're dumb.
You really got like a thing about King Kong potentially winning.
No, because I'm worried that they're gonna do that. They're gonna be like, everybody loves an underdog.
It's hard to practically make this fight even.
I'm just saying,
is America. We gotta make the American monster win.
I'm just saying, I think you could do a story where Kong comes out the victor.
You'd have
Nah. And then Mechagodzilla shows up, and then they both team up, and then they kill that guy.
How do you kill Godzilla if you don't
use the oxygen destroyer?
Okay, so King Kong retreats to his lair, and with his female co-host, his human female co-host, who's beautiful, they both figure out a way to create
the female Kong from King Kong Lives.
Okay, but your first mistake is thinking that if in this proposed scenario, if Kong wins, they're going to kill Godzilla. They're not going to, because they want to make more Godzilla movies.
But they also aren't contractually able to.
Yeah. So it would just be a matter of Kong incapacitating Godzilla, which instantly I think makes that fight more even.
Killing
but
Godzilla,
they could easily be like, King Kong kills Godzilla, and now he's King Kong because Godzilla was king of the monsters.
And now King Kong is the king of the monsters.
But you just said they're contractually not allowed to kill Godzilla.
No, I said they're contractually not allowed to make more.
Oh, I thought you meant not kill him. My bad.
No, they had a 3-film deal. They're done.
But killing Godzilla is not going to stop us from making more Godzilla movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've killed him before. He's died in at least 2 films I can think of.
But the thing is those movies weren't as connected as these movies are. I feel like with the tone
the older movies are a lot more connected than you probably are giving them credit for. At least, like, they are definitely a series.
Okay, but what I was saying was these movies are also a lot more serious in tone. Yeah, they have their lighthearted moments, and they're not taking themselves as seriously. But I still feel like it's just realistic enough that if you tried to kill Godzilla and then bring him back, that might be
you just introduce a new a new one in his species.
That's true. But that might also be weird too, because with the way they play him in these.
Or you do Son of Godzilla. You do
no, what you do What you
What
do
the fuck is
is
his name?
what you do is you find out that Godzilla secretly laid a bunch of eggs in Madison Square Garden.
No, you don't. You don't do that. You don't do that, and then say you didn't.
Well, no,
That's terrible.
what happens is Godzilla kind of just skewers King Kong with his tail, but King Kong survives. But it turns out that as Godzilla dies, he basically did an alien thing, and now Godzilla's eggs are inside of King Kong's body.
No,
Or Godzilla impales King Kong with his tail, and then it turns out he wasn't King Kong, he was Mecha Kong, and he rips his skin off and he's metal. And then Godzilla's like, yeah, well, I wasn't Godzilla either. And he rips off his scales and he's Mecha Godzilla. And then real King Kong and real Godzilla are off to the side like, what the fuck's happening over there?
Okay, this episode is degenerated into complete nonsense.
Everyone.
This is turning into just a real Godzilla film is what's happening.
But the last thing I do want to say in this, like, just utter nonsense, is you do the eggs in Madison Square Garden.
No, how do I mute you?
And then you have an army of Velociraptor Godzillas just running around New York City.
No, Godzilla has a son in the old movies. You just do him. Oh fuck, what's his name? He's got like a really stupid name.
There we go. I disabled his video, so now we can't see him.
Good. Fuck you. Because have you guys ever seen what Godzilla's son looks like? No.
Okay. No.
I have. I've seen two versions.
Yeah, because there's one that looks more like Godzilla, and then there's one that just looks like a weird gray putty thing, and he's the best one. And he can't shoot atomic breath. He can only shoot rings of smoke. And in Destroy All Monsters, he shoots out a ring of smoke that wraps around King Ghidorah's head and chokes him.
Okay, while you're pulling that up,
yeah, I'm posting it in our admin chat right now.
Okay. So we're gonna wrap this up because, like I said, this has just evolved into us being idiots.
Oh, then that's his name. His name is Manila. That's what it is. Now I remember.
Okay. So
yeah, he's my youngest brother's favorite monster.
We were supposed to do the Vampire Hunter D films that Milton had picked, but we decided to push those back by a week. Austin, before we decided to push it back, were you having any trouble finding those?
No, because it was on that streaming thing.
Oh, okay. I forgot that he posted that. Put that in our admin
Although one
chat.
thing I should say is I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to watch anything for this Wednesday coming up just with Easter, but I'll let you guys know.
Well,
how dare you celebrate a holiday?
just watch Vampire Hunter D with the family. Do you want to see an 80s anime movie and then a early 2000s anime movie? While the kids hunt for Easter eggs.
Listen, Austin. I don't give a fuck about Easter. You missed 2 weeks. You're not allowed to miss anymore.
Oh, I got my 2 sick days.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll probably do Vampire Hunter D next week unless our plans with a special guest, kind of fall into place. Keep that a little cryptic as a surprise if that isn't what ends up happening. We appreciate you guys coming by. Austin, glad you could be here for one stuff. Glad your work didn't hold you over so you could actually join us tonight.
Yeah.
I'm very glad about that.
I didn't want you to miss this one because I know you're a big kaiju fan. I will probably post this tomorrow morning because I'm getting really tired. Thank you guys for hanging out, and we will see you next week. Have a great night.
Thank you for watching, everyone.